Welcome to MatuChat, episode 14. This is your host, John Marcos, and finally, for the second time in a row, I haven't done an English episode since episode 2, but today I'm delighted to have my guest, Mrs. Sahej Bains. What's up, Sahej?
Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm chilling. It's been a break-ish while I continue studying for the test. But yeah, we're here finally.
Yeah, finally. Thanks for having me.
Of course, you've heard of the legendary podcast
I have, yes.
that I've been mentioning while I was during rotation. I think you and the people over there, like, it was fun. And I think you guys like me, right? I won't put you on the spot.
Yes. No, we absolutely do. It was great having you for those 2 months or so. So just excited to see where you head off next.
Yes. I was doing a recap memory thing with my photos on Instagram, like putting those reels. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of content. I did a lot of things in a few months. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's, science and life just moves fast.
And friends as well, honestly.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I cherished every moment of it, and it's too sad I didn't get to explore more of Minnesota has to offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, due to COVID, everything's a little toned down than years prior, but we still try to give every student the best research experience possible. So
yeah, I mean, maybe when I had a car. So I'll have that in mind, because recently I took the historical tour of Rochester. Have you ever taken that when you were here?
I have not done that yet. No.
Oh my God, I recommend it to you, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, they talk about the Mayo brothers and stuff like that, and the tornado, and the different places and the different presidents that came for that to congratulate them. It's pretty cool. Maybe we'll be there one day.
Yeah, maybe.
Having like acres of land.
Yeah. Maybe not quite that much, but who knows? Everything's possible, right?
Yeah, anything's possible, hopefully. So Sahej, I'm delighted to bring you on. I actually haven't ever brought a person in MD PhD before. I've had a PhD. Yeah, so you're like the first one ever.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm honored.
Yes. So to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your origin? How do you got here? How do we get to have the experience of getting good education?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in India, and my family moved here when I was in second grade. So I've been there here since then. We moved to Chicago and then to Indiana. And then after that, just adjusting to American culture and making friends here, making a home here. And then in Indiana, after high school, I went to Purdue University for undergrad, where I got a bachelor's in science, or bachelor's of science in biology, I should say. And then after that, applied to Mayo for MD PhD program, got accepted, and here we are.
Wow.
So that's the brief version of the story.
Yeah. And you came in pretty young, right?
Yeah, I was about 8 years old, I believe.
Nice. So you still say you're still fluent in your primary language because of your parents, I'm guessing?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Since I went to school in India as well, I speak Hindi and Punjabi fluently. So
nice. Today I was in one of the reunions, and one of the people spoke Portuguese, and they were like trying to remember how to do it. I'm like, what? That's your first language?
Yeah.
That's really tough. I can't imagine that. Like, there's so much culture and even memes you can make in your language that other people quite don't understand.
Right. Yeah. Some things are hard to translate, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And so when you were in Purdue and thinking about applying to Mayo and probably other universities, what kind of sparked that passion into biomedical science or the research aspect, the medicine aspect?
Right. Yeah, I kind of had always wanted to go into medicine. That was something that, even as a little kid, I just loved the idea of being a doctor. Not for any specific reason at that age, but then slowly, as I grew up, just volunteering in hospitals, shadowing clinicians, and just really liked how, you could be in a field where you can help people, but also be a leader in that field.
Mhm.
And I think like physicians really have the ability to have both of that, both of those things. So I was just have always been passionate about learning about, human anatomy, biology, and lending that into just a career that, brings it all together with patient care and eventually being able to help people, make the best of their life. As far as science, honestly, I was not really interested in pursuing a PhD.
Hmm.
Initially, until undergrad. So
Most of
I,
us,
yeah,
that happens.
I, yeah. So I started Purdue with the idea of, I'm going to get my MD, go to medical school. And I started in my undergrad research lab as more of a checklist, like I'm going to med school, so I should do some research just so I can have that check mark on my CV.
Yeah.
But fortunately for me, I had a really great experience with my advisor there at Purdue. And that really sparked an interest for me. So I really became interested in research, was doing it, about anywhere from 15 to 20 hours a week, along with classes in undergrad. And I really wanted to continue doing that. And that led to more experiences, doing surf programs at Purdue and at Mayo, and then eventually translated into me wanting to not being, totally satisfied with an MD. So I wanted to do a combined degree in MD PhD.
Oh God, yes. And then did you get any? Because I had some of that when I was a pre-med, and then same thing, got some research experience, got motivated, and then said, maybe MD PhD. And then when I went on an internship, I
Mhm,
like kind of mentioned it, like, oh yeah, sure, MD PhD, like that sounds pretty awesome. And they were like,
mhm.
no, 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 you got to choose one or the other. Like you can't do both. Like no, like very directly trying to undermine it or trying to unmotivate me to do it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
Like, did you ever face that? Or oh, I think you've kind of
Actually,
okay.
so I can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah, you're good.
Okay, perfect. I actually was encouraged by my undergrad advisor. So she, is she was the first person to be sit me down and really say, I love the work that you do in lab. I know that you're passionate about medicine. Why not just do them both? And I didn't know that was an option then until she told me. So I'm thankful that she did. And from that opportunity, really, I started exploring the field a little bit and what it entailed and, the lifestyle, so on and so forth. But I have had several interactions with, clinicians and even research scientists who have said, why do both? And kind of not, I wouldn't say dissuade me from doing it, but, challenging, making sure that I really knew what I was getting myself into.
Hmm.
So having that discussion, why is it important? Why both? Why not one or the other?
Hmm.
So yeah, I wouldn't say that anyone's tried to, flat out say, no, don't do it. But I've definitely had people ask me really, honestly, why do you want to do it? So,
Yeah, for sure.
which is always hard to answer, of course. So
Yeah, it's a heck of a question because
yeah.
we now getting more into the PhD process, we understand that there is the grant applying component to it, but there's also the active lab duty component to it.
Mhm.
So like finding a person who can do all three or trying to do that unless they have like the support, it kind of seems very impossible. And
Right.
the PI that kind of mentioned that to me, her perspective was more like, so you're gonna end up choosing one or the other. Like you kind of can't do kind of like both.
Right.
But at the same time, it's very gratifying because there's a lot of people who, and there's nothing wrong with techs. Like they learn a skill and they
Mhm.
repeat a skill. but what is the underlying mechanism that's going on, or how, like that problem solving mentality that a lot of people lack. And nowadays people just say, oh, you have coughing or whatever, let me just prescribe you this, and I won't tell you what's in the background or in for me, but like
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of hectic.
No, for
So
sure.
when you reach that point, when you finish your program and whatnot, how do you visualize yourself in that role of using your degree in what you
Mhm.
deem as appropriate or satisfying?
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good question. And honestly, it's a loaded question, right? Because at this stage in my career, I honestly am very open to the opportunities that come. Obviously, everyone, most people will set out with certain goals and expectations of where they see themselves,
Hmm.
but I think it's important to just know that not everything you envision will come to fruition.
Yeah.
Some might be for the worse, some for better. So just,
Hmm.
you know, that's life. But that being said, as of right now, I think I see myself, finishing the MD PhD here at Mayo, and then applying for residency and taking that path. So residency, fellowship, training. And then, hopefully I can find myself or create for myself an environment just like my current PI has, where kind of emulate him in the sense that I'm able to have the best of both worlds. So
Hmm.
I can go to the clinic, see my patients, but then really use my research to bring the current treatments and therapies into my clinic and really
For sure.
integrate both parts of my career. So hopefully I can, have that opportunity like he has. And I think I'm in a really good environment that set me up for great success, but we'll see where life
Yeah.
takes me and
People are
how that.
evolving all the time and all the ideas. And
Absolutely.
in the episode that I had Adriana on, episode 11, yeah, episode 11, I remember. Wait, no, it was episode 12. My bad. In episode 12, I asked her about that, like, how does she visualize herself in the path? And she just said, right, I don't know. And
Hmm.
that's okay. And obviously we always have a good idea. And something that kind of like sparked me when she said that was the fact that she didn't want to place limits on herself by saying, I want to become this thing
Hmm.
or that thing. And that's like, whoa.
Right.
Not I did not think about it that way. Then I mean, I always have like a tendency to like a certain type of thing. Like I like interacting with
Hmm.
students. Sometimes I like getting the wet lab, sometimes dry lab, whatnot. and uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, hopefully we find ourselves in a equilibrium kind of place where.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think she's absolutely right. I don't think it's fair to you to set limits this early on. So it's good to explore and just see where your,
Mhm.
education and the opportunities take you. So.
Yeah, and even throughout undergrad we have an idea of what type of things we want to pursue. So I would ask you
Mhm.
now, what was your, like, for example, when I was a kid, I was thinking about, oh, I'm gonna learn how to become oh my god, I don't even know how to say it in Spanish, but the doctors that receive babies, what was the name of it?
Yeah, like an OB-GYN.
Yeah, yeah. See,
OB-GYN.
I would
Yeah,
never,
yeah.
yeah. But in my perspective, it was like, oh yeah, I'll be so honorable to receive life and like create. But then I started, but maybe not, maybe not, maybe that's too intense for me emotionally or whatnot.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so then I switched maybe narrow, but you always think of those big like neurosurgeons. Like you hear a lot of people, they're starting in med and they really haven't experienced much, but they go for the big shots, whatever they hear first. Oh yeah, neurosurgeon. Oh yeah, heart surgeon or whatever. And it takes till they
Sure.
are in those environments to decide, okay, maybe that's not for me. What would you say was that for
Mhm.
you?
Um, within medicine or in general?
Well, it can be, yeah, in general, like, well, if medicine was always in your track,
Mhm.
the type of physician you wanted to be as a kid, or as a kid, it's not the same one that you want it to be today.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess within medicine, I know, like, as a kid, I mean, I'm sure it's not just me, but, I wanted to be an astronaut and see the stars and also be a doctor at the same time. So as a kid, you have those dreams.
Superwoman.
Um, yeah, you have to have it all, right?
Yeah.
But I think I started out within medicine. I thought about pursuing oncology in research and in the clinic. So I wanted to be an oncologist for the longest time. And that was mostly, it was a decision that I made because of my undergraduate experiences. So I was in a cancer research lab, and I thought, that's what I would like to do clinically as well. And so, I shadowed a lot of oncologists while I was an undergrad, shadowed radiation oncology, just exploring different fields within oncology itself. And then I came to Mayo, and I knew for sure, I want to do cancer research. And the first rotation I did was in this current lab, which is, as you know, a cardiology lab.
Yeah, exactly.
And and I honestly thought, I was like, oh, this is just a cool experience that I want to try. I don't think that I would stick with the heart. I think cancer is so cool, and I would go back to it. And I just wanted to try something different and kind of, have a fun experience before medical school really started. But then, I really fell in love with this lab and the work that we do. And I think a big part of that is my mentor, my current mentor.
Yeah.
So he's, always been super supportive and just, a great example as someone I can look up to. And so I was like, maybe I could see myself doing cardiology. So I shadowed him in the clinic here over the past couple of years. And, now I can see myself doing something in cardiology, possibly. But yeah, I honestly, I
That's
still
so
don't know
fascinating, that
exactly.
transition.
Yeah.
From
I
passion to
think,
cancer straight to heart, huh?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And who knows, maybe you can combine cancer within the heart. So maybe it'll come back full circle.
Maybe with that hypertrophy thing. I wasn't
Yeah,
scary.
yeah. Or just, cardiac cancers.
Oh, okay. So cardiac cancers would be like the myocardium like dividing a lot. Like it wasn't supposed to be dividing, but it just divides. Yeah, sure.
Well, or just like, metastasis and stuff that
Oh, okay.
arises. Yeah. But you never know. I'm not saying that that's what I'm thinking right now, but just,
Pretty rare.
yeah, it
to
is.
have it.
Those are very rare, conditions, and there are people who pursue that. But I think right now, honestly, I'm really fascinated by genetic cardiology in general. So I could see myself doing something along those lines, but obviously nothing set in stone.
Nice. Let's see. When I entered the Mayo, I had in mind to try to continue to find labs. In fact, I can say this, like in my mind, Mayo didn't have a lot of the research that I was looking for, like only some of the PIs, but obviously has a lot of resources, lots of opportunities. Like, heck, I am going to the 3 sites like that. What university has that? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's already a big bonus. But one of the things that stood out when I was in the interview process was that my director told me, hey, John, like when you get here, you can study whatever you want. Like you don't have to you don't have to just do platelets because you stayed with platelets in undergrad. You can just
Absolutely.
go beyond, you can do it. And I'm like, whoa. Because the thing is, even in Puerto Rico, like one of the most challenging topics of lab, because it was so famous in the island, was narrow. So a lot of these kids like me trying to look for a narrow lab. Oh yeah, narrow lab, but I never found a narrow lab. So I was like, well, maybe it's not for me. Maybe I'll just focus on something else, because I never got an experience of going to a narrow lab. So having the experience here and having the option to go beyond. So
Right.
I'm doing everything different, like cardiology. Let's do now I'm finally here in Florida. I'm not in Florida yet, but when I go to Florida, I'm gonna do the narrow, and then in Arizona the cancers. I'll do it for you, Sahej. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, represent that. But yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's, one of the things about Mayo that I absolutely love. It's really, they push you in the sense that there are no limits. You get to decide what you want to be and where do you want to go in your career. And that's just, the flexibility that they give you is just phenomenal.
Yeah, a lot, and very grateful to be here, having fun so far. So now that you've made it here in this process, I bet you, like me, like all of us, had a lot of lessons that we took from either high school or undergrad. So for you, what would you say were one of the most important lessons you've learned throughout your progress in your career and whatnot? Oh, okay, we're good. Wait a second.
Okay, you can, if you want, you can.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, perfect.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you were asking me about
the lessons.
Lessons that I've learned. Honestly, it's funny that you asked me. I was just talking to a colleague today about this, but I think the most, I wouldn't call it so much as a lesson, but more of an advice that I learned. So this is from a very good mentor of mine. He's a neurosurgeon here at Mayo, and he kind of always told us to always think of yourself in the next position. So let me explain that a little bit. So he said, when you're a medical student, don't act like a medical student. You act like a resident. And when you're a resident, don't act as a resident, you act as a fellow and do things that a fellow would be expected to do. When you are a fellow, think of yourself as a consultant, so on and so forth. So always think of yourself as a step ahead and give yourself, responsibility and conduct yourself appropriately like that. And the same applies for research. So when you are a PhD student in a lab, think of yourself as a postdoc. When you're a postdoc, think of yourself as an assistant professor, the next level. So that's an advice that I think really stuck with me. And in my work every day, I try not to act like a PhD student. I try to delve more into and see, what would a postdoc be doing that I could bring into my work ethic. How do I work harder than an average PhD student would? So I think that's just something that I've really adhered to in my work life. And so far it's paying off, and sometimes it's challenging, obviously, being a PhD student, you can't really be a postdoc, but I think just something to aspire to is the key there, like have that sort of work ethic where you put more responsibility on yourself, going above and beyond to do not just what is required of you, but what can you do beyond that basic requirement. And along the same lines, my current mentor in the lab, he's always said, don't look at your current situation like a stepping stone. So don't say, oh, I'll be happy, like, and not right now as an MD PhD student, but when I'm a resident, I'll be, and when you're a resident, don't say, I'll be happy once I'm attending, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of funny the way the two intersect, and it's one thing to bring that sort of work ethic into your life, but it's another to say, oh yeah, this is not really my job. My real job will be when I'm a resident. So
Oh no, yeah. So that's so dangerous to say that I'll be happy when. I'll be happy
exactly.
when I do that, and
right.
the other.
Yeah.
Like you might never be there, like if you don't. people should be happy now, honestly. I know that it gets very tiring, and I know that it gets very burnt out, especially in an MD PhD program. Wow, that sounds like, how do you view that aspect? Is it, are you faring fine? Is it really, really intense? How are you alive?
I think honestly, it's 8 years, right? Just objectively,
Yeah.
it can be in a long 8 years, or it can be 8 years that fly by so fast that you just enjoy the journey. And I think that honestly really plays into the kind of environment that you are either put in, or you put yourself in, that you create for yourself. And I think being at Mayo honestly has made those 8 years seem really short, thankfully. So I'm really fortunate that I've had that experience. Now, of course, I'm 3 years in, and well, more than 3 years in now. I'm starting my fourth year. And so maybe I'm, in that honeymoon phase still, where I'm in love with everything.
Yeah, seeing our
And
colleagues like going through oral quals and whatnot, and
mhm,
we're like, I'm so glad I'm not that person. We're not
yeah,
kidding.
exactly. So maybe, this will fade, and I'll you know become more vulnerable to to the difficulties that this career can bring.
I mean, you
And
made it so far. Like those two first years aren't easy anyway. You already took your step one, right?
yes, I did. Yep. Yeah.
God
So
damn.
stepping stones.
How do you keep yourself grounded on that? How do you feel? What's a strategy you do to try to not get like burned out? I mean, I know balance is the key to everything, and
Yeah,
scheduling maybe, but what would you
right.
be your, yeah.
Yeah, I think honestly, I love being busy. That's something that I just have to have. If I have one project I'm working on, that causes me to become more burnt out in a sense um than I would be if I'm handling multiple different things. And I think
Mhm.
it's just like, if you're having a meal, you have one big pot of the same thing, and you keep eating that, you get tired of it.
I know
But
it's
if you
healthy,
have
but I'm kind of craving something.
yeah, but if you have a couple of different appetizers, you can always
Go with the
pause on that main
set C
meal.
nachos and your
Exactly.
onion rings.
So, yeah, exactly. So I think it's just all the different flavor, that really provides some excitement. So you don't get tired of that one big thing that you're focusing. So I think that's kind of my strategy, honestly.
Mhm.
I try to focus on my main project, my thesis project, but along with that, I try to get involved in other things, side projects, something to take my mind off, give me a
Mhm.
break and stuff.
I
So,
I love how taking your mind off is just working on another project.
well, it doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be a scientific project. It could be,
Like a
a side
podcast.
hobby. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's just adding some flavor to your life than just that same mundane routine of doing the same thing over and
Adding
over
some
again.
turmeric, adding some adobo to it, salt and pepper. No.
Yeah. So that's my advice, but or at
Nice.
least something that I've been doing. It's worked out so far.
Yeah,
And that's just something I've always done. Like even in undergrad, I would sign myself up for
into a lot of things, right?
exactly, just like keeping yourself busy with other stuff, so you don't always have to be stuck thinking about the same thing. I think
Yeah,
for me that's the key, honestly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Doing the same thing kind of like gives you a burnout in the brain, and you feel it like, okay, I need to try to do. I know how that feels, because some of the projects were kind of like, back home, like they may be prepared, and they're time consuming, and that's normal. Like most
Mhm,
projects are, um, but always having that ability to do other things. And when I was in high school, my chemistry teacher, she told us, hey guys, when you go to college, like enter
yeah,
into everything, because you'll know your limit. Like honestly, you'll know your limit, and then you know how to prioritize which one to kill out, which one do you do that, and I totally relate to that. Honestly, when I was studying, I think I mentioned it. Oh God, sometimes I do this so far, so I don't know which episode I repeated this or whatnot. But I want to do this, whatever. Um, and the thing is that when I was studying for the MCAT, and this is kind of my origin story into the PhD, and I think I told you that before. When I was
Yeah.
studying for the MCAT, so I think I had a short period of time to take it because of the application process and then whatever. But I was finding myself that I wasn't spending so much time in the lab. And I take a lot of time to get all that information and to take just the test. So in that moment, obviously everyone has different goals and different desires. But for me, I was like, no, like, I don't want to do this now. Like, I don't feel like it. No, I just want to become a scientist right now.
Yeah.
Who knows if in the future, if I want to do the MD route, I don't think so, because I like teaching. I like people learning, and the youth keep me young. I'm still young, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. Well, MDs teach a lot too. So I wouldn't really rule that out, just throwing that in there.
It's true. It's true.
So
You're right. Maybe, I guess it would be about how recent do you want to do it, Because let's say if you want to like commit yourself to 4 more years and then residency to then teach, then that's a
Right.
different type of story.
For sure.
So yeah, like, oof.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of students nowadays that are aiming to either pursue MD or a PhD or do both. So to those students that are considering the career of MD, PhD, what would you say to them, or to things to consider that kind of like helped you find your way into the decision?
Sure. Yeah, I think, like you said, it's a really good point. So as you mentioned, when you were studying for the MCAT, you kind of realized when put in that situation that, oh, maybe, I don't want to do this. I don't feel like I can put in the energy to do this because I'm more passionate about something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think just knowing that, what is it that really makes you passionate? For myself, when I was studying for the MCAT, I wanted to be in the lab, right? Just like you
Oh
said.
God.
But then when I was in the lab, I really wanted to go back to studying and get into medical school and do that. And even now, having that MD PhD student life, when I go, I go to the clinic still every month for a day, and just to keep fresh on my clinical skills. When I'm in the clinic, I think about all the lab work that I could be doing, and constantly have that in my mind. When I'm in lab, I look forward to that next clinic day. So I think it's that passion that goes both ways, and not being able to be truly satisfied with one or the other. And then I see my mentor, and he has
I don't know how he does it, honestly.
this research exactly, yeah. And he has this research life and he has his clinic life going on simultaneously, and I'm like, okay, so there's the hope, exactly.
And
so
educational life, like, goddamn.
he really does it all. He teaches, he's an educator, he's a researcher, he's an excellent clinician. And I mean, I'm not saying I'll be at that level, but something to aspire
Hey,
to.
you're in
sure.
a good route, Like we are the product of all the people we spend most time with. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think honestly my advice would be to find your passion, see where they lie. If you honestly could be happy with an MD, because you can do research as an MD. You don't necessarily need a full PhD training to do research. There are many physicians at Mayo that I've interacted with who are brilliant researchers, with an MD background. And if you are passionate about research, and you can be involved in clinical research without directly seeing patients, so there's always those options. So I think it's really good to know your options and know why you want to pursue something, and the more homework you do on that, the better off you'll be. So I think talking to people who have an MD and do research, have a PhD, and are still able to do patient related research,
Mm-hmm.
and then MD PhDs, and really finding that difference out, the nuances between the careers for yourself, and then committing to one,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's honestly where I would start, and that's how I started on this path, was just by weighing the pros and cons for each career path. And at the end, honestly, whichever path you take, you can do whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't you won't really be limited in that sense. And I think the other thing is, just looking at the path itself, and the MD PhD, it's 8 years at least, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of PhD. Medical school obviously is 4 years, and then there's residency and beyond. PhD, as you know, varies. So I've seen people complete their PhDs in 3.5 years. I've seen people take 9 years to complete their PhD. So it's really variable, and all that to say, really, just see the pros and cons of the lifestyle, and how much how long do you want to be in school for, and
Mm-hmm.
all that. So
Yeah.
I think just looking at the big picture,
Yeah.
not the next 5 years really, but the next 15 years, and
Honestly,
seeing.
what will really complement all that is just the desire to keep learning.
Mhm,
Like not
exactly.
doing the same thing, not being very monotonous. Like even when you get old, right? Even when you
Mhm.
get your old age, like for example, our director, like we're speculating how old he is, and he just keeps going. He loves it and keeps learning, and we're like, wow. Like I hear a lot of students about the dream of retiring and whatnot. I'm like, why? Like I get it, but like
Yeah,
take 2 months vacation, but
right.
those, yeah, like there's so many
Exactly.
things to learn, even beyond medicine or work related. Maybe you can, I don't know, learn a different language, live somewhere else. There's so many
Yeah.
things, man. And maybe one day we'll go to space as well. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just, exactly. I think having that really passion for learning is really important, regardless of which career you go into. So
Mhm.
just love what you do, and and then you can do it for the rest of your life.
Yes. And I heard it was interesting because I didn't know that when you were a kid you wanted to become an astronaut, because like I find that for people like in academia, in academia, in the science area, I
Mhm.
find that there's a lot of people who wanted to be astronauts. Like there's a decent pattern of people who started out like astronaut, like, oh yeah, what's in space, aliens. I think even
Yeah.
at one point I wanted to become a meteorologist because the shapes of the clouds were very cool and how they form. Like,
Yeah.
oh my, that kid
Yeah.
desire, man, that's something else, honestly.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's the curiosity of it all, and just the unknown, and I think it's just, it's fascinating. Obviously, most people that I've talked to have at one point really been obsessed with space, and including myself,
Yeah, me too.
and yeah. So yeah, I think, that's just one of those things that is very appealing, especially to a kid.
Yeah, I have a cousin. It was interesting. It was in episode 8. It's in Spanish, so you can't hear it. But he's actually interested in aerospace engineering. So
Yeah.
he's working with NASA and all that stuff. And it
Mhm.
was very interesting that finally, I don't remember ever him. I think he told me that at one time. Look at the twist. I think he wanted to be pediatric when he was young,
Mhm.
pediatric, like not like astronaut necessarily. And then he grew up,
Mhm.
and then he's technically working for for NASA.
Yeah, yeah. That was honestly my dream. I liked science, so I knew I wanted to be doctor, but of science, like within science, I didn't really like engineering. So
Mm,
my solution as a kid was to become a doctor, but then become a doctor for NASA, so that they would take me into space with them, and I wouldn't have to really
I
go
love
through all
it.
that engineering
I
training.
love it.
So that was my workaround.
God damn, that's a. I mean, I think it's a hard. I don't think there are a lot of You imagine first medical school in space or or hospital in space. Damn, who knows? Here to 50 years. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever heard about the what space does to the body?
You mean just in terms of living up there
Yeah,
for a long time and stuff?
yeah.
Not in detail, but I'm curious now. So what does it
Okay.
do?
Yeah. I recommend you check it out. Like today we had like a meeting and the person and they work at Mayo and they
Mhm,
were interested in space and they were like looking for opportunities in space as well. And how they ended up at Mayo, I didn't quite understand how, but they did it and and man, very fascinating stuff in the stars.
mhm,
Um, but going to back to Earth, what would you say is a thing that you would want to complete for your own life where you feel like satisfied, like for the world, like
mhm.
what do you think, passionate about, you see there's a problem and you want to be there, you want to wear the cape and be super Bains.
Yeah. Um, you know, honestly, at this point, like where I am with my career and my very limited knowledge of what all this career holds,
Hmm.
I think, just being able to have that one patient that you can look back at and really say, I see that I made a difference, whether that's something tangible or just something that they tell you. I think that just rewarding experience where you see that, okay, what I've done has really made an impact on someone's life. And it doesn't have to be super direct, it could just be a small gesture or something. But I think just having those moments, I think is what I
Of
really.
genuine gratefulness.
Exactly. Yeah. I think just knowing that, you've been there for someone and you've made an impact in their life. It has sort of that almost like a healing property with, we were
Hmm.
talking about burnout earlier and just having those moments where somebody comes back and tells you, like, yes, you've done something to help them feel better, make their day, whatever it is. I think just having those moments is honestly what I think this career is about. And, yes, there is the medicine aspect of it, but at the end of the day, the person you're treating is a human being and with all their complexities and their life and, besides their actual medical conditions. So just taking their mind off of that stuff and making them happy for a moment or two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. It can continue on and hopefully pay it forward as well,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whew. Honestly, very exciting times, and I hope I can do that as well. Like one of the goals that I always feel, even through the podcast or whatever, is just to be inspirational to others,
Mhm.
because others heal when you heal. So you're like being there for them and then seeing
Right.
them like get out of a tough area
Mhm.
or healing from a condition, like that's very, very, very rewarding.
Exactly. Yeah.
um
Yeah. And I mean, it, honestly doesn't have to be, a big thing. I have a very close friend and he was telling me the other day, he had a patient, noticed on the patient's chart that it was their birthday.
oh,
And so he went into the room and he was like, "Oh, by the way, happy birthday," before starting the actual exam and whatnot. And it kind of made that patient stay, they told the nurses about it and the whole team. And it's just small stuff like that, make a person feel seen and visible. I think, that's what
that's so
medicine should be about,
wholesome.
really.
I
Yeah,
love it.
exactly.
I love it. I love it. Oh God, I had the next question, and oh yeah, I remember. Because sometimes I forget the question I was gonna ask you. So, if it weren't for the your undergrad research and your passion for medicine, what would you feel in a parallel universe? Who do you think that you would have become had it been anything happen and you just like different, you know.
Yeah. Besides medicine.
Yeah, besides medicine.
I guess I see myself sort of as a problem solver. I like finding, a problem and getting fixated on it, and then I just need to fix it. So I don't know, maybe I could maybe see myself, being a lawyer or
Oof.
something like that, where, again, you see a problem either in the system or somewhere, that you just kind of want to jump in and fix. So maybe, yeah, maybe I could see myself as a lawyer in a parallel
As a
universe.
lawyer, very professional. That's their objection.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. So you've been maybe law, or what way specifically? I mean, there's a lot of problem solving type of career. So why you were interested in law, or
Not, I wouldn't say that I've ever been seriously interested. Um, you always, see lawyers on TV shows and, it looks cool and all that. So,
lawyers?
again, as a kid, you always hear about that. And I think within like just in undergrad, I've had a couple of friends go to law school and just kind of like seeing that, I'm like, oh, I could see myself doing that. It's still just like very interesting career. And I think, like I was talking about, it's never boring, right? It's never mundane, at least from
I mean, there
from
are
my
cases
outside
everywhere.
perspective.
One day you're dealing with the ex-boyfriend of someone, or one day you're dealing with a robber. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. From an outside perspective, it seems like they're always having some interesting thing to do in their life. So I think, yeah, something like that, maybe. Who knows?
Nice. Have you
What about
ever?
you?
What about me?
Yeah,
I think I would have become a psychologist.
really?
Yeah. Or I always say one of the two, psychologist or nuclear physicist.
Okay. That why?
Right? Very. So psychology is simple. I like people. I like to understand. Heck, this is part of the reason I'm doing the podcast. Trying to understand where people come from, why they do what they do,
Mhm.
what drives them. I like that. I get
Yeah.
positive energy, and honestly, when you're a psychologist, you're not always gonna get a positive energy. But I think it comes to what you've mentioned as well about just being a problem solver, trying
Hmm.
to obviously you can't solve every person's problems, but you can. There is a puzzle to be solved in the person you're treating. You just got to
Yeah.
help them out and try to find the pieces and help them see that, hey, like this is very happens to everyone, and while there's life, there's hope. You can try. Like this is the only one we got at the moment, and there's always chances once you do the work and try to search that piece.
Hmm.
I honestly, I know it's hard when maybe you're in an area where you can't exactly leave, so that, like, even there's some limits to that, like, but I think it's honestly about the perspective about it. Like, what do you
Hmm.
do with the things that you have, and how do you
Yeah.
work through it? So
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
the psychology part, but the nuclear physics part has to do in part with my internship at Hopkins, interesting enough, because
Oh, I didn't know you had an internship at Hopkins.
yeah, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Never mentioned it to you. Interesting. No, yeah, I did. Was a interesting experience, internship. Pretty
Yeah.
intense. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it gave me a good foundation to my next lab in Puerto Rico.
Hmm.
Gave me a lot of skills where I just like went straight to work and pretty focused, in my opinion, I think.
Yeah.
um, but the point was that I was taking a break. I wasn't in Hopkins, I was at home, and I was watching this Chernobyl mini series, and learning about radiation and all about that,
Hmm.
and like the things that radiation does to your DNA.
Yeah.
Like, we hear simply sometimes about the changes in nucleotides, like
Hmm.
the simple stuff, but then you realize like radiation can break your chromosomes.
Right. Hmm.
How is your cell gonna? And so anyway, I was just learning about people who were inflicted by this great amount of radiation in high volumes, and they were just dying while alive. Like their cells weren't dividing, because you looked at their karyotype, it was all screwed up. You couldn't tell which chromosome was which.
Right.
That like, whoa, that's so like, it's terrible, but it is fascinating, like the power that you got there. And so I kept learning about nuclear reactors and nuclear bombs and everything, and I was like,
yeah no, it's honestly, it's very fascinating. I think honestly that's one of the reasons why I was so interested in cancer originally. Just these mutations, how a cell can go from being perfectly healthy to this, having
mutant
this
monster.
terrible condition. Exactly. And so it's fascinating, mysterious, lots of research being done in that area. And it's just,
I think I even heard, because that was a long time ago, but about how cancers recruit other cells to defend them. That's so crazy.
Exactly.
It's like the cancer infiltrated the politics of your body and it's taking control and lobbying everyone to
right. Exactly. Tricking your body into hurting itself in a way. So it's just terrible and very fascinating.
Destructive, but like, someone has to study it. Why not? Why not us?
Exactly. I think just, it's incredible field. I think it's devastating to see patients go through that.
Oh no,
but
it's
rewarding to but it's really rewarding, when you find a new exciting target, therapeutic target, that you can then go after and beat this terrible disease. I think that's where the reward of the research comes into play. So it's just one of those things that I'm glad that we're making advances in the scientific community for that. But
bit by bit getting there. One of the hardest things that I've seen, because I've said that if we find a way to like edit, like let's say this person has the screwed up chromosomes and whatnot, like that is a heck of a task for us to try to rebuild that and like allow it to do it to all affected cells. I think maybe that's our limit. Maybe, I don't know, but I would like to think that we wouldn't have limits in the future, but that certainly fixing chromosomes seems like a stretch.
So did going into space at one point, right?
Wow. You're right. Maybe one day we'll reach immortality.
Who knows?
Would you like
if that is the goal, then maybe.
Would you like to would you like, well, I don't know, to be part, let's say that immortality was made possible in the test tube. Would you like to do that? Like be immortal?
Would I like to take the pill to be immortal?
Yeah. the red or the blue?
I don't know. I mean, if that meant being,
healthy.
If it meant being healthy, but more importantly, if it meant being surrounded by people I love as well, and if I wasn't, alone in being immortal, then why not? Maybe, but I think if it meant, yes, you're immortal, but everyone around you, people that you love aren't continuing on that journey with you, then
that'll be pretty depressing.
So I think I truly believe that everyone has a purpose in life, and I think you're given time to complete that purpose, and that's that. So I haven't really thought about it, but it's an interesting concept.
Like there's always like the topics of radiation, like those are things beyond our current careers that kind of like fascinates us. And even in the area of medical science, is there a particular area that you say that I never thought about working in it, but it fascinates you? Like, Maybe your plan
Yeah,
Z. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say Plan Z, but I think just going through undergrad, like I've really been interested in just neurobiology, learning about neurons, forming these synapses and memory and formation and how all that works. I think it's just an incredible process. But I'm working on the most important organ, not that I'm biased, which is your heart. So i think the brain can wait, but no, I mean, jokes aside, I think neurology, neurosurgery, just anything to do with the brain is really fascinating, and the
Hmm.
research that they do,
Emergence
whether
of
that's
consciousness.
yeah, exactly. I think it's just fascinating, kind of like you said, with psychology, psychiatry as well, just formation of thoughts and why people do stuff that they do. How does
Mhm.
the chemical balances in your brain play into that? I think it's just fascinating. Never really thought seriously about doing it myself, but could I see myself doing it? I think absolutely. I just um,
There's got to
I'm
be more.
happy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm glad people are doing it so I can keep learning about it.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How
And
about you?
how about me?
Yeah.
Another area that's not for.
I guess you're
Hmm.
kind of, you've seen a lot of different areas. You've seen cardiology and,
Now I'm going to
um
narrow.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, I
any
really
areas that
be in biomedical science. I guess immunology, but even then, in the cancer area, I'm probably going to learn more about that.
Mhm,
Virology for sure, but that's a technique that you can apply in any of them, even in the hard stuff.
mhm, yeah.
um, but I think I like the one that I'm at, honestly,
Yeah.
because of the rotations, I got to pick labs that, every hypothetical one, cards the stuff, maybe narrows the stuff, maybe the
Mhm,
cancers the stuff. And even the one that I chose for rotation in Arizona was because it was specifically cancer induced by HIV. So there's also the virus component to it.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, so maybe more on the epigenetic side of it.
Mhm,
I don't think that I would want to learn more about that research, more from a social standpoint. Like
yeah.
there are certain behaviors, or well, not behaviors, but maybe it's like they said that you have two twins. One grows up in Alaska, one grows up in Puerto Rico, and they look very, very different. And that's because your environment kind of turns on your genes,
Right.
or turns off your genes. So
Mhm.
I really not like above the surface. I'm interested in it, but not sure if it's something that I would like dedicate a whole grant for, because it's not.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah, for sure.
maybe something for me. Maybe I would try to see, what genes would activate if I stay here in the winter in Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly. And you can
do
try
you
that out.
do you feel that your genes are activated in the winter?
Honestly, coming from, very hot country like India, where even the winters are, they're very mild compared to winters here. Then seeing snow for the first time at, 8 years old, it's just,
I still haven't seen
um,
that.
yeah, I know. I know. That's why you have to keep coming back to Minnesota for winters.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, I think epigenetics is very cool. And but yeah, I just never really found myself really intrigued by that area so far, like enough to do it myself.
Hmm.
I think the research that's being done is very cool, but I just don't have quite that passion for it right now to pursue it
Yeah.
myself.
I mean, if they, yeah, yeah, maybe the first step, and this is a scary step for a lot of people, but sequencing your whole genome and
Yeah,
studying your genome, that would be
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would. Knowing myself, I'll probably be
Freaking out.
scrutinizing every little thing that they point out. But yeah, could be very interesting.
Studying your own God. That's very interesting. If
Yeah, for
people
sure.
see something they don't like there, or because it is true that sometimes you have the genes for a certain disease, but doesn't necessarily mean that it will activate as well. So
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah.
I guess it's
So,
still good to know, because even with your diet, if you're more susceptible to a certain disease, heart disease, and you have like
mhm.
a crappy diet, you're probably in the long term gonna be trying to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's, knowledge can be power. And also
Knowledge is
too
power.
much knowledge can also I think it can also, negatively influence if you're sort of the warriors of the world.
Hmm.
But which I think I am a little bit. So yeah, I think a good balance.
Yeah. And what disease in the area, well, what disease, health disease, do you feel like it's like one of the worst that you like, you just think about it and you're like, ugh, like that really sucks.
Yeah, like we talked about cancer,
That
obviously,
one.
is one that it's just, I mean, fortunately we've made advances in different areas within cancer where we've gotten much better than we were. But there's still some other areas of pancreatic cancer, for example,
Yeah, because of the
where we
diagnosis,
haven't.
right?
Exactly, where we haven't made that much. But I think as far as disease is concerned, there's not a disease that I would look at and say, oh yeah, that's mild. So
Hmm.
I don't think I could really pick one that is more unfortunate than the other. But I think at the same time, it's it's good. I think it makes you more, you know, more comforted knowing that there's a treatment out there for it.
Sure.
Because yes, a disease can be severely debilitating, but then if there's cure and treatment for it, and if it's, most importantly, accessible
Hmm.
to people, um, then I think it makes it less threatening, in
Hmm.
a way. So yeah, I don't think I could pick a disease that's the worst one.
Yeah, and even when you have, let's say, a disease like cancer,
Yeah.
environment really, really matters, and
Hmm.
that's what I like about Mayo, about like how we treat the patient, because
Hmm.
it's like when you feel that you're alone, when you feel like you are being neglected,
Hmm.
what does your body, I've used this analogy before because I saw it in a video, in the sense of the depression, where you kind of like feel like this thing impending, like you're like very, very down.
Hmm.
It could be for different reasons, of course, but it's like your body saying, oh my god, like I'm alone, I'm kind of like dying, I need this
Yeah.
thing.
Hmm.
um
Yeah.
and they kind of like explain it that way. When you don't have your tribe, what does that signify to your body?
Hmm.
Oh no, I don't
Yeah.
have anyone to help me defend myself, because we're a community. That's our type of like species. So
Yeah.
really being there for the patients could really increase their lifespan. So
Hmm. For sure. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. No, I think there's, a lot of healing power in that connection, that just having another human being there, and just mental health playing into that, and just,
Mhm.
it really, I think, impacts your resilience and your desire to live, having that support around you. So yeah, for sure, that's a big part of medicine.
Words of affirmation, feeling like loved and whatnot. Like, it's pretty good.
Exactly.
And that was one of the most gratifying experiences I had when I also not rotate, volunteer in a hospital,
Hmm.
and playing with the patients there, like how you're doing, like that's very, very,
Yeah.
really,
Hmm.
it's really, really good.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think having just those moments, I volunteered at a hospital during undergrad, and I went and saw this patient. He was a terminally ill patient, and as soon as I, came into the room, he was like, "Oh, I know you," and I was like, "Oh, I don't think you do. I don't
I've
think
never seen
I
you before in my life.
yeah." And he was like, "No, we played bingo together at a
Oh, my
nursing home."
heart.
yeah, and then I remembered, a couple years back, I actually did go to a nursing home, and I was like volunteering and spending time with them and playing bingo and dancing and games at the nursing home. And he remembered all that, and clearly it was an impactful moment for him, and then later on for me as well. Just um, because sometimes I think we do stuff and you kind of just forget about it and you move on,
Yeah, like that's
but it's
over. Okay.
yeah, well, not in that sense, but just sort of, yes, that was fun, and then you get busy with
Mm,
other stuff. But then hearing someone really hold on to those,
memories.
happy memories, yeah, it's really rewarding. And I kind of felt guilty for not remembering him, but at the same time, it's kind of good to
It's like, whoa, you remember me?
yeah, exactly. Have that have that moment. And now certainly, 4 years later, I remember him. So
Oh man,
yeah.
those are the
So,
experiences that are really worth it. That are really worth it being in this field. So
mhm.
I thank you for your service, Doctor, future Doctor Bains.
Yeah, thank you. Also to a future doctor.
Yes, future Doctor Mauro
Yeah,
Polanco. I hope we'll get
yeah.
there soon. So, in that
Mm.
note, thank you so much for participating in my podcast, Sahej. It was fun,
Yeah,
and thank you for sharing your experience.
yeah.
Any last words to our public?
No, I had a really great time. Thank you for inviting me. It's kind of fun to share my thoughts and hear yours. Yeah, and I love the stuff that you're doing with the podcast. Keep that going, and I'm sure others feel the same way. So,
Yeah,
pleasure being here.
awesome. Thank you so much for coming, Sahej. And
Yep.
what's part great about this is that these will be archived, so you can look back and be like, damn, I remember where we weren't doctors and we're like going there at it, and this is so
Yeah,
great, man. Like really,
for
really
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So
So,
with that,
yeah.
episode 14, thank you for listening.